Folks, I'm going to have to ask you to brace yourselves for a second because I'm going to say something entirely shocking that you may want to be sitting down for. We here at TrekCulture really want Legacy to be greenlit. I know. Terrifying. Completely groundbreaking news. I'm Sean Ferry for TrekCulture, and here are 10 reasons to greenlight Star Trek Legacy right now. Number 10, center seat. The journey of 7 of 9, from the child of inquisitive and frankly terrible parents to the captain of the flagship of the Federation, is one of the longest and most impressive character arcs in all of Star Trek, up there with both Worf and Nog. The chance to continue her story and strike while the iron is still hot is way too tempting an opportunity to pass up. Her story has been developing since the 4th season of Star Trek Voyager, the very first episode, Scorpion Part 2. And almost 26 years later, the story is still unraveling, as evidenced with her arrival in the first season of Picard, where she is still very much searching for a purpose in the Alpha and Beta quadrants. She settles in as the first officer of the Titan A, but even that is not without its issues, with her butting heads with Captain Liam Shaw. Now, with the death of Shaw and the reshuffle in Starfleet after the events of Frontier Day, she is fast-tracked to captaincy of the Enterprise G. This is a story that very much begs to be told, because we've seen Seven in so many different variations throughout her career, but a captain is very much a version of Seven that I want to see, particularly one who has Raffi sitting on one side and Jack Crusher sitting on the other. In fact, it's part of those relationships that would be so meaningful for people to see in Star Trek Legacy. Here is the outcast, the rebel, the hard-earned, when it comes to respect of others, hero of the journey, and those who might be able to both support and keep her balanced. It's a no-brainer from me. Number 9. What about the Klingons? Discovery certainly brought back the Klingons, and it remains to be seen what they will do with the Klingons in their 5th season. Several Klingons have passed through in Lower Decks, and there was in fact a Klingon in Star Trek Prodigy. But for the most part, when it comes to the late 24th and early 25th century, the only real Klingon we've spent any time with is Worf. Star Trek Picard chose to omit the Empire, focusing instead on the Romulans for its first season and the Borg for, well, effectively its entire run. What is the Empire up to? What do they look like at this point in history? The Empire will probably still be rebuilding after the devastation of the Dominion War. Whatever happened to Chancellor Martok? Why did Worf step away as Federation ambassador to Kronos? As it stands, we don't know what's happened to the Klingons, and their absence is sorely noted. The arrival of Star Trek Legacy would leave the door open for guest performances from J.G. Hertzler and even Tony Todd. But as time goes on, these are questions that only get more and more stinging by the fact that we don't know the answer to them. Number 8. You want crossovers? One of the highlights, and frankly biggest surprises, of Strange New Worlds' 2nd season was the crossover with Star Trek Lower Decks. I admit to being very confused when I heard it was coming, that there was going to be a crossover between a live-action Star Trek and an animated Star Trek, and the fact that it was done so easily begs the request for more. In that episode, of course, we see Jack Quaid and Tawny Newsome, and, because we're greedy here, we're a bit sad we didn't get to see Eugene Cordero or Noel Wells. It is unlikely as things stand that we would see the characters from Star Trek Prodigy appearing in live action, so that might again beg the question of, could the Lower Decks characters in total cross over with Star Trek Legacy? I argue they can, because again, Star Trek has done it so well and quite recently. Plus, I really want to see Noel Wells play Tendi in real life. Who doesn't want to see that? Number 7. Daystrom. You need more fingers than I have on my 2 hands to count all of the things that we could dive into of Picard's final season, but one of the biggest and most tantalizing things it introduced was Daystrom Station, the Black Ops site where Section 31 housed the most dangerous artifacts that they've discovered. Not since some bloke wheeled the Ark of the Covenant into a warehouse have we been teased with such a goldmine of potential storylines. Theft of another Genesis device, if it has a paywall or not, or attack by attack tribbles. It's all there for the taking. A deliberate inclusion of Picard's 3rd season would perhaps set up what would be something people have been clamoring for a long time, which is the return, pun intended, of Captain James T. Kirk. His body, after all, was recovered from Veridian 3 and is kept in storage on Daystrom Station. The description Project Phoenix was written on his coffin? Tomb? Icebox? Whatever you want to call it. So obviously someone's been having a crack at resurrection. There was an opportunity in the never-produced 5th season of Enterprise that may have seen William Shatner return to the role. This is going to sound perhaps slightly insensitive. The clock is ticking on having William Shatner appear in Star Trek again. So if Legacy is greenlit, and if that is something that is going ahead, I feel that this would be a very nice inclusion in a first season. It could end up capping off Kirk's storyline in perhaps a more satisfactory fashion than Generations was able to, and also include perhaps the handing over of batons as well. It could be a slight stretch or far-fetched, but this is Star Trek. What isn't? Number 6, fleeting. How can this list not have a mention of starships? In fact, don't forget to check out our list of 10 ships that need to be in Star Trek Legacy. Legacy has a fleet that's sitting there ready to go. Think about what we saw in Picard's 2nd and 3rd seasons. As part of the promotion of Picard, we got detailed breakdowns of all of the different vessels that were featured in Frontier Day. We had Excelsior class, we had Sovereign class, we had Odyssey class, we had Akira class, and we had a slew of vessels from Star Trek Online as well. For Legacy, you also have the options of, well, the Constitution 3 or the Neo-Constitution class seems like a no-brainer, but also the scene-stealing USS Intrepid as well. There's also options from Star Trek Online like the Chimera class or the beautiful Pathfinder class as well. Audiences may even welcome back the Inquiry class, which, when there's not 150 million of them on screen, is actually not a bad design. And of course, whatever happened to that old Sovereign class Enterprise E? That seems like something we should probably follow up on. Number 5, its cast itself, and the cast itself. If the name is any indication, Star Trek Legacy surely has to be about the people at its very core, both the crews that have gone before and the crews that are yet to come. This would seem like an even more prime opportunity to bring back returning faces. Picard did it very well in the 3rd season. This is something that could be built upon in Star Trek Legacy. The fact that Picard producers were able to keep the return of such characters as Ro Laren a secret proves that there still is things that can surprise us even all these years later. What's Ezri Dax up to? We know Janeway's looking after the crew of the Protostar in the early 2380s, but what's happening in the early 2400s? Has Bashir finally gone over to Section 31? Is Garak still ruling the Cardassian Union? Where the bloody hell is Captain Harry Kim? There is the risk that Star Trek Legacy could just become Easter egg after Easter egg after Easter egg, and that would only serve to hurt the show overall. So there would have to be a bit of restraint exercised when it came to just bringing people back. It's about how you use them. For example, a character like Barclay could come back because Barclay, who was instrumental in Project Pathfinder, might also now be instrumental in helping to rehabilitate Starfleet after the events of Frontier Day, because if there's someone who knows about trying to figure themselves out, it's probably Barclay. Number 4. The Return. The finale of Picard's 3rd season left us with that stinger of a mid-credits scene in which Q appears to Jack's Crusher and says he still has so much left to do. A recent interview with John Delancey might suggest that, as it stands, this may only ever be a dream. But this, in fact, is such a wonderful way of using it as a jumping off point for Legacy as well. Q has been one of the stalwarts of Star Trek since 1987, since his rather late addition to the script for Encounter at Farpoint. In that time, he's been a thorn in the side of Picard. He bothered Sisko once, and went on to spend an awful lot of time on Voyager. Sure, Q died in Season 2 of Picard, but when has the Q ever been corporeal? And in fact, how many times has the Doctor died in Doctor Who? And it's alright, that was in the far future, it was in the past, or it was actually an alternate universe, it was this, or that was that. This is sci-fi. What does death really mean? With that, would it not be hilariously fun to see a possibly earlier version of Q playing with a later version of our crew? There's always been that careful walk between imp, mischief and menace within Q as a character, and is therefore a great foil for some of our crew as well. Now again, this will be a case of striking while the iron is hot, because the longer you leave it go, the less possible interest there might be in picking up this particular storyline again. Of course, there's a challenge with so many projects on the go, including Section 31 and Starfleet Academy, that things could end up getting pushed back and pushed back and pushed back. So we can only hope. This is something I think I'm happy to hope for. Number 3, post-Supernova. There is a literal goldmine of storytelling that can be mined from the Romulan supernova. What seems like an odd addition to the 2009 film has actually become an incredible way of building new stories around the Starfleet universe ever since. First season of Picard, of course, is entirely framed with the Romulan supernova. What caused it seems to be natural, but what causes came from it are very much unnatural. The impact of this goes right through up until the 32nd century, with the planet of Ni'Var existing in no small part because of the supernova. Symbolically, 2024 would be a great time to greenlight Star Trek Legacy and say, yep, we're going to deal with the supernova because it'll be 15 years after it was first introduced in 2009. And excuse me while I just throw up a little bit in my mouth when I realized that was 15 years ago and I remember it like it was yesterday. But even with all of the discussion about the supernova and the Romulan Free State that Picard in particular has done, we know next to nothing about what state the Empire is at the moment. Where are they? Surely they can't still be on the artifact, as that's downed over Coppelius. So did they find other colonies to settle on? I would presume that yes they did. And if they did, where are the Remans? Because presumably if Romulus was destroyed, I presume Remus must have been destroyed as well. So where are they? Did they get off the planet in time? They have space capability, as we saw in Star Trek Nemesis. So what's the deal? And of course, you knew I was going to say it, another big question is, whatever happened to Sela? Now, we've covered that so much on the channel that I'm not going to go too much into that now, but where are everyone's favourite bowl-cut badasses? Number 2, on demand. As with Strange New Worlds, the demand for Legacy is here now. Think of the fan outcry after the second season of Star Trek Discovery for there to be a spin-off series featuring the new old crew of the USS Enterprise, and far sooner than as the time has gone by between End of Picard and now, there was a confirmation that Strange New Worlds was happening. As Trekkies, we are a vocal bunch, always have been, when it's been writing letters, or whether it's been getting together for conventions, or of course in the modern age of social media, we let our feelings be known. Discovery, since its arrival in 2017, has been a constant source of conversation, if you will, even if perhaps it didn't click with as much of the audience as the producers may have hoped, which may in fact have led to its eventual cancellation. Lower Decks seems like a bit of an about face here, as it's very much a gift to the fans. Picard helped to offer more time in the 24th and early 25th century, whereas Strange New Worlds was literally born from the cries of the audience. Legacy continues to be a huge source of conversation. It is often trending day by day, and you have showmakers like Terry Matalas and others like him who are chomping at the bit to be involved and to help make this a reality. So we implore once again to Paramount, listen to your audience. The 25th century is too alluring to ignore. To quote a certain Senator Nunklus, there has never been a better time. Number 1, easy money. Legacy, if the producers will admit it, already exists. By that we mean that the physical sets of the Enterprise G already are there, and so are all the CGI assets as well that would have been built for Picard's 3rd season. Some of them have actually existed since season 2 because of the Stargazer. They've proved resilient enough for 2 seasons worth of use and some minor redresses. In terms of setting up from the get-go, this has to be one of the less expensive shows to get going on. The bridge, corridors, sickbay, and a whole host of other sets, 18 in total, have been constructed. This means that the budget for the show could either be drastically lower or reallocated into other areas. For example, we still haven't seen main engineering aboard the Enterprise G or a main shuttle bay. And of course, just think about how fantastic Star Trek in particular has been about repurposing sets. There may even be 1 or 2 that could be repurposed from Discovery. Now, while that bridge has been reused a few times, and of course, let us not forget the wonderful Federation HQ, which gets reused every Tuesday, there are a whole host of other locations, corridors, even planet sets that could be upgraded for the 25th century. It seems like all of the ingredients to make Legacy happen are there, And all we need is for someone to go, oh, they want Legacy? Yeah, all right, we'll give them Legacy then. Please. Thanks very much, folks, and thanks very much for watching along. You are awesome, you are wonderful. Thank you so much to Clive Burrell, who wrote the original article upon which this is based. Please follow him on Twitter at SKOST. You could read the original article over on whatculture.com. You can follow us on Twitter at TrekCulture. We're on Instagram at TrekCultureYT. I have been Sean Ferrick. Catch me at Sean Ferrick. Look after yourselves. Keep tweeting hashtag Star Trek Legacy. That's what we need to make this a reality, is you need people at Paramount to be able to make the decisions to see that the demand is there. You are wonderful. You are awesome. Have an amazing time till I see you again. Live long and prosper. Thanks very much.